Lately, I've noticed a trend. A certain type of guy, confident, comfortable on a panel, typically highly respected, yet light on research and prep, will confidently declare that the PESO model hasn't changed or doesn't work anymore or hasn't evolved. This usually happens right before they explain a strategy that they've come up with that treats paid, earned, shared, and owned media as four separate checklists. Or when they pontificate that we need a new acronym. That happens a lot. One that typically is far more cumbersome than PESO. When pressed on what's actually changed in their implementation since AI, newsroom layoffs, or creative-led media took over, the answer is not much. Or they'll say, my favorite, I meant no offense, but look, I think it's great that we all have thoughts on how to improve the industry, from tactical execution and reaching audiences where they are to measurement and how to implement AI. But if you're going to pontificate about how a framework hasn't changed or evolved and then introduce your own interpretation of it, do your flipping research first. It's not hard. The PESO model has not failed to evolve. Some people fail to use their critical thinking skills before making claims about something that isn't true, but the PESO model has definitely evolved. It was built to flex as media shifts, audience fragment, and credibility gets harder to earn. If anything, the past few years have made it considerably stronger. It's no longer the list of tactics we launched in 2014. Google Plus, anyone? It has evolved into a complete marketing operating system. On this week's Spin Sucks podcast episode, we'll discuss everything you need to know about the PESO model in 2026.
If you're a communications pro who works hard, doesn't compromise quality, and gets the job done, welcome home. We'll share our tips, tricks, and stories, and together we will change the face of PR. Spin sucks, but we don't. With the Spin Sucks podcast, here's Gini Dietrich.
Welcome back to the Spin Sucks podcast. I'm Gini Dietrich. Before we get started, I have a little tidbit for you. Did you know that if you can't finish watching right now, you can subscribe to the audio version of this show? We're on all the platforms where you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple, or you can subscribe to our newsletter at spinsucks.com and get it in your inbox every Tuesday. The claim that the PESO model hasn't evolved shows up with surprising regularity, usually not from people who are new to communications, but from those who have been in the industry long enough to feel confident they already understand it, but aren't PESO model certified, don't subscribe to our content, nor have had a single conversation with me about it. That confidence is part of the problem. Frameworks are often treated like reference material. You study them, understand the logic, and move on. But an operating system doesn't work that way. You don't install it once and expect it to run unchanged while everything around it updates: platforms, audiences, algorithms, and now AI. Think about your own phones, how your phone operating system is updated. It's done pretty consistently. The PESO model is the same. But when results start to plateau, it's easier, so much easier, to declare the system obsolete than to examine whether your workflows, integrations, and assumptions have kept pace. It's also because I haven't written a second book about it. It's on the list, I swear. But the challenge is that things change too fast. The first few chapters I write are often obsolete by the time I reach the end, which means I have to start over. I did that twice last year. Twice. It's not exactly conducive to also running a business, evolving a model in real time, and working with teams who are actively implementing it. So the book priority has moved back down to the bottom of the list. Someday. But that's why I publish weekly, because PESO evolves in practice, not in a static manuscript. What's changed isn't the labels, it's how the system runs. Tactics age loudly. Google Plus, fine, those were both part of the first iteration. The way we pitched journalists in 2015, built audiences in 2018, or distributed content in 2020 no longer produces the same outcomes. When those tactics stop working, the model they were plugged into often gets blamed, when the real issue is that the operating logic underneath them was never updated. And finally, of course, there's the industry's love of novelty. New acronyms feel like progress. New diagrams feel decisive. But renaming the system doesn't fix disconnected execution. It just gives fragmentation a shinier label. When people say PESO hasn't changed, what they're really saying is that their implementation hasn't. The system has moved on. They have not. Of course, and at a glance, and without a simple Google search, the PESO model looks the same. It still has paid, earned, shared, and owned media. The components have not changed, but that's precisely why the system still holds. What has changed is how those components are expected to work together. In earlier years, you could run each media type in parallel. Content lived in one lane, media relations in another, social in another, and paid showed up when we needed it, right? That kind of loosely coordinated execution could still produce results. That, unfortunately, no longer works. Today's environment is far too fragmented. Discovery is way too distributed. Trust is much harder to earn, and it's easier to lose. And AI-driven systems are far better at spotting inconsistency than people are. Running PESO as 4 separate checklists doesn't compound it. It makes it compete with itself. So when you think about it, you want to think about modern PESO functions as an marketing operating system. Owned media becomes the system of record. Earned media validates what's already visible. Shared media pressure tests ideas in public. Paid media accelerates what's already earned trust. And then you have signals that move across channels, your proof travels, and your insights compound. When PESO works now, it's not because every box was checked, it's because the system is aligned. And this is where many critiques fall apart. When PESO is treated like a static framework that you just research and go on about your way, or a list of tactics, it will absolutely feel outdated. But when it's run like an operating system, one that's designed to adapt to how people discover information, decide what to trust, and choose who to believe, it's more relevant than it's ever been. With that in mind, it's worth looking at how each media type actually functions inside the system today, starting with the one everything else depends on, and my favorite, owned media. In today's PESO model, owned media is no longer about how often you publish. It's about what you can prove. So for years and years and years and years, content was treated as a volume game. More blog posts, more pages, more assets, more. I remember having dinner with my friend Marcus Sheridan years ago when he asked why we published so much content. And at the time, I think we were publishing twice a day. It was a lot of content. I showed him all of the data to justify our actions. He nodded, thought for a moment, and then said, you know, sometimes even too much sex is too much. I laughed, but I've never forgotten it. That approach did work when distribution was easier and competition for attention was lower. But in an environment shaped by AI discovery, algorithm filtering, and shrinking attention spans, volume without authority doesn't compound. It disappears. Modern owned media functions as an authority system. It's where your organization demonstrates your expertise, it documents your experience, and it establishes a point of view, thought leadership, that cannot be validated elsewhere. This is the foundation every other media type relies on, because without it, there's nothing credible to earn, nothing credible to share, and nothing credible to amplify. So in 2026, the 5 core jobs of owned media are that it proves expertise, so you don't have to keep claiming it, documents experience, the part AI can't fake. You want to go back and look at EEAT from Google if you want to know more, because experience, expertise, authority, and trust still reign supreme. It creates referenceable assets. It reduces dependency on rented land. It's always done that and continues to do that. And it acts as the connective tissue for earned, shared, and paid media. The organizations that get this right treat owned media as infrastructure. They invest in it deliberately, maintain it consistently, and revisit it often. For a long time, earned media was defined narrowly as pitch a journalist, land a story, and then measure success in impressions and ABEs, or maybe even in website traffic. That model worked when journalists controlled distribution and credibility was scarce. But just as content volume stopped compounding, coverage volume has lost its power to persuade on its own. Earned media didn't disappear. It hasn't gone away. It has just diversified. Today's earned media is less about where you show up and more about who is willing to reference you and why. Credibility now comes from being cited, quoted, invited, linked to, or relied on by people and platforms your audience already trusts. Journalists still matter, but they are no longer the only or even the primary gatekeepers. In 2026, the 5 core jobs of earned media are that it validates the expertise you've already demonstrated, it extends credibility beyond your own channels, it creates corroboration, and credibility compounds when the same ideas, frameworks, or experts show up consistently across many independent sources. It shifts focus from placements to relationships, and it feeds the rest of the PESO system. Earned media performs best when it points back to strong owned assets. It sparks meaningful shared discussion, and it gives paid amplification something credible to accelerate. When earned media stands alone, it fades quickly. When it's integrated, it compounds. If earned media is where credibility is validated by others, shared media is where that credibility is tested. For years, shared media, often reduced to social media, was treated primarily as a distribution channel. Publish a post, promote a link, repeat. Success was measured by follower accounts, impressions, or the frequency of content being posted. That approach worked when reach was predictable and algorithms were generous. That version of shared media is gone. In today's PESO model, shared media functions as your proof layer. It's where ideas are challenged, amplified, ignored, or endorsed in public. It's where audiences decide whether your expertise is worth engaging with or scrolling past. So in 2026, the 5 core jobs of shared media are that it validates reference. Shared media reveals where your ideas resonate with real people in real time. Saves, shares, thoughtful comments, and peer-to-peer discussion matter far more than raw impressions or follower accounts. Number 2, it humanizes expertise. Shared media works best when subject matter experts show up as humans, explaining, reacting, clarifying, and occasionally disagreeing. Number 3, it creates social corroboration. When ideas circulate across networks through reposts, commentaries, screenshots, and discussion, they accumulate proof, that social proof that we need. Number 4, it builds and sustains community. And number 5, it informs the rest of the PESO system. It tells you which ideas deserve deeper owned content, which perspectives can earn external interest, and which messages are worth amplifying with paid support. The biggest mistake organizations make with shared media is treating it as an obligation instead of an indicator. Posting more does not create proof. Engagement does. Conversation does. Endorsement does. So if owned media is the foundation, earned media is your validation or your credibility, and shared media is your proof, paid media is what accelerates what's already working. For a long time, long time, paid media sat uncomfortably inside communications programs because it's not something that we're used to doing, right? It was often treated as a last-ditch effort, used when earned stalled, shared underperformed, or leadership wanted more results. In those cases, paid media wasn't amplifying credibility. It was compensating for its absence. That approach, of course, no longer works. In today's PESO model, paid media isn't about replacing trust with money, with spend. It's about increasing the speed, reach, and precision of messages that have already proven their value. In 2026, the 5 core jobs of paid media are that it accelerates proven messages. So paid media works best when it amplifies content that has already earned credibility and engagement. Number 2, it improves your precision. The loss of third-party cookies now enables us to reach the right people, not just more people. Number 3, it supports credibility in crowded environments to help ensure that credible, useful content isn't drowned out by louder, but less trustworthy voices. Number 4, it strengthens partnerships and earned opportunities, sponsorships, content partnerships, and host-read placements, particularly in podcasts, newsletters, and events, can extend earned relationships and deepen trust when aligned with strong owned assets. And number 5, it reinforces the full PESO system. Paid media should always point back to owned assets. It should always support earned credibility, and it should always extend shared engagement. When paid media operates in isolation, it inflates metrics without building trust. When it's integrated, however, it accelerates the entire system. The biggest misconception about paid media is that it undermines your credibility. In reality, poorly used paid media does. Thoughtful paid media, grounded in proof and integrated with the rest of the PESO model, does the opposite. It ensures that the work you've already done reaches the audiences who need it most. Okay, so by this point, one thing should be clear. None of the 4 media types are designed to work on their own. This is an operating system that gets updated consistently. Right now, as of this moment, and this may change in 6 months, but right now, owned media proves expertise. Earned media validates it, shared media tests it, and paid media accelerates it. Integration is what turns those individual strengths into that operating system. It isn't about doing all 4 things at once. It's about intentional flow, using insights from one media type to inform decisions in the others. Your proof should travel, your credibility should compound. You want people to say, oh my gosh, I see you guys everywhere. When integration works, owned media becomes the destination. Your website becomes the destination that everything points to. And I know that not everybody's coming to the website, but with the work that you're doing, the goal should be to get them there or to have you show up in AI answers so that they're getting the information without coming to your website. So I would say owned media is the destination as well as your AI answers. Then earned media reinforces and extends that authority in trusted environments. It might be a Substack newsletter. It might be a LinkedIn newsletter. It might be a podcast. It might be traditional media. It might be a TikTok creator where people trust the influencer. Shared media reveals which ideas resonate and deserve more investment, and paid media accelerates the messages that have already proven their value. Each media type strengthens the next. They build on the other, and it becomes this sort of grinding gear flywheel that continues to work. This is also where PESO begins to operate like an operating system. The system doesn't care which channel wins. It cares whether the whole effort moves the organization closer to trust, visibility, and business results. Once the PESO model is integrated, measurement becomes about demonstrating whether your credibility is increasing, your visibility is compounding, and your work is contributing to real business outcomes. When PESO is implemented as an operating system, measurement becomes more clear, not more complicated. And I know we don't want more complicated. So in today's PESO model operating system, measurement should show whether expertise is being recognized. If people and AI systems spend time with your ideas, revisit them, and use them as source material, your authority is taking hold. Measurement should also reflect credibility beyond your own channels. Earned media success isn't just about placements. It's about where and how often your expertise shows up across trusted environments. That repetition, is a credibility signal worth tracking. Measurement should evaluate resonance, not reach. Shared media tells you whether your ideas land. Saves, shares, meaningful comments, and peer-to-peer discussion reveal far more than impressions ever could. Measurement should assess acceleration efficiency. Paid media shouldn't just increase your numbers, it should reduce friction, meaning shorter sales cycles, faster to yes, faster decision-making. And number 5, it should connect to business reality. That doesn't mean every metric has to tie directly to revenue, but it does need to ladder up to outcomes that leadership cares about. Pipeline influence, demand quality, reputation strength, risk reduction, or decision confidence. When PESO is integrated correctly, these connections become visible. What's changed most is where measurement shows up. Increasingly, visibility isn't confined to dashboards or reports. It appears in AI-generated summaries, search results, buyer conversations, and unsolicited references. When PESO is treated as a system, measurement becomes less about proving you were busy and more about proving your credibility is compounding over time. So, the PESO model has not stopped working. It has not stopped evolving. The environment has changed and the expectations have gotten higher. What once rewarded volume, twice daily blog posts, now rewards authority. What once depended on access now depends on credibility. And what once could operate in silos now demands integration to have any lasting results. The model still does exactly what it was designed to do. It still helps organizations build visibility, it helps organizations build trust, and it helps organizations build influence across paid, earned, shared, and owned media. But in 2026, it only works when it's treated as a system, grounded in proof, validated by others, tested in public, and accelerated strategically and measured meaningfully. If you do those things, it's not outdated, it's indispensable. If you want to learn more about how the PESO model has evolved, has evolved, join us in the SpinSucks community. It's a great place to get advice, brainstorm ideas, and build real relationships with your peers. You can find us at spinsucks.com/community. That's spinsucks.com/community. And make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. We're posting tips, how-tos, cheat sheets, and more every week. I'll see you next week. Bye.